The greatest business people have a genuine fascination for the truly astonishing impact little things done exactly right can have on the world. It was Michael E. Gerber who said that in the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited book, which is something that I'm reading today, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this episode. It's just the power of small things, these tiny, insignificant details that make all the difference. Well, girls love musicians, don't they? Uh-huh. Even the weird ones get girlfriends. That's right. Meatloaf definitely got it laid at least once. For God's sake. Ringo Starr married a Bond girl. Whatever. There's this big concert at the end of term, and Joanna's going to be in it. I thought if I was in the band and played superbly, she might fall in love with me. What do you think? I think it's brilliant. I think it's stellar. Apart from the one obvious tiny little baby little hiccup. I don't play an instrument? Yes, sir. A tiny, insignificant detail. That's one of my favorite pieces of the movie Love Actually from 2003. It's one of my favorite movies. Ashley and I watch that movie, or we try to watch it anyway, every Christmas. It's a Christmas movie, sort of, but it's really funny. And this part where this young boy, I think he's 8, 9, or 10 years old, is having a conversation with his dad, played by Liam Neeson. And I, of course, did not have the accent there, so it would have made a little bit more sense, and you might have caught on to it if I'd had a clip to play, but, don't want to get in trouble with royalties or anything. But this young boy is wanting to convince this girl that he's just this awesome dude, and he wants to attract her. And since she's a singer, he wants to play in the band. And Liam Neeson, the dad, points out the fact that he doesn't play an instrument, and he calls that a tiny, insignificant detail. And that's what I want to talk about today is these little things that are in our life, that are in our business, our podcasts, our blog, our careers, that make all the difference. And I've got a few examples that we'll get to here in just a second, but here's an idea of some of these little things that aren't necessarily related, but are kind of fun, and it'll get you thinking along the same lines that I'm thinking about and get you ready for this episode. Think about your haircut. I've been cutting my own hair for several years. I just get a low guard and just buzz the whole thing. It's really easy, but always be careful to trim around the ears and the hairline to get it just right. So when you're thinking about your hair, ladies, and you're looking at a guy and you're thinking, okay, should I go out with this guy? Should I date this guy? Or should I be friends with this person? Look at their hairline. It's just the details. It's the attention to detail that people take or don't take that make all the difference. Make sure they also do that little nose hair trimmer. If they've got the dangly ones, it's kind of gross, but that's another attention to detail. It's the manicure or the pedicure that really polishes things and makes things look a little bit nicer, look a little bit cleaner. It's the firm handshake when you meet somebody. Stuff that could be easily overlooked, but if they weren't there, it would make all the difference. It would change our perceptions, and it would change how people view us, how we view other people. And as Sam, the boy in Love Actually, says, these are tiny, insignificant details. And before we go into it, I'll tell you, Sam does end up getting the girl, but there's a big amount of effort that he puts into learning how to play the drums. Hopefully it's not a spoiler alert. The movie came out 12 years ago, but it's this tiny detail that made the difference. But whenever Sam was able to make the detail go away, when he was able to learn that instrument, he was able to do some really cool things. So with that said, I'm going to go into how we can apply this idea of small details to better our business. And again, as Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth, the greatest business people have a genuine fascination for the truly astonishing impact little things done exactly right can have on the world. So we're going to go through headshots, fonts, colors, your tone, what you share, and how you can test some of these things in this episode. So the first thing, your headshots. Whenever you are going to do headshots on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, most of those social networks have the ability for you to upload an image. Now, whenever you're doing this for your business, you want to create a level of consistency across all the social media platforms. One of the things that I've done over time, it's been a lot of effort. I don't think I've actually had to spend any money, but I've spent a lot of time and effort making sure things are consistent across all these platforms. When you go to my blog, my podcast, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you should be able to feel like it's done by me. You want to be able to go to my Facebook page and say, I can see Ellery's personality coming through this. When you go to my Twitter profile, same thing. I can see Ellery's personality going through this. And you, as the business owner, the entrepreneur, can do the exact same things. Even if you're not on every social media platform, even if you don't have a podcast and you just blog, or you do a blog but no podcast, you can do the exact same thing. Creating this level of consistency. When someone is searching through an index, if you have a common name, like my name, I think I'm probably the only Ellery Wells in the world. Maybe, here in 10 years, people are going to start naming their children after me. I don't know. I always suggest that to my friends. Oh, you should name them Ellery, and no one's done that yet. But anyway, whenever you are searching for your name, or someone is searching for you online, whether they want to find you or buy from you or follow you or like your page, you want them to be able to immediately recognize that headshot picture. It's just creating that consistency. Oh, I've seen that on Facebook. Now I'm seeing it on Twitter. I know this is a real account. I know this is a real person, and I know what I'm going to get when I go into that. And speaking of headshots, this past week, someone on Twitter copied my headshot. They were using my image on their Twitter page, and someone, let's see, it was Kim Trumbo, I think, mentioned it to me. She found it and shared it to me, and it was kind of interesting being copied or being, I don't want to say ripped off. I mean, they were using it, just a picture of me out on my back porch as their profile image. But you want people to be able to scroll through like Kim did and recognize, when they're looking for you anyway, recognize that headshot and say, hey, I know that person, and I'm going to follow them, or I'm going to connect with them. And you can do the same thing. If you're putting a headshot on your business cards, I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea, but that would be another time you would want to use that same picture, the same one that's on your about page, or the same one that's on or in the header of your blog. And we want to do those kinds of things. Just these little tiny things that can create a level of consistency so it feels like home. Here's one that a lot of people overlook, and you could probably skip this one if you wanted to, but it's, again, those tiny details that make people really comfortable, make people really feel like they're home when they visit your site. It's fonts. If you have the ability to change the font on your website, which if you're using WordPress, which I recommend, if you're using WordPress, you do. Some of these other places, I don't know if you can change the fonts or not. Some of the fonts come with your theme, or you can download Google Fonts probably as a WordPress plugin or something like that. But I try to make the fonts that I use the same everywhere. So if I upload an image, I used to use the Trebuchet MS, which is a Microsoft font. I use Microsoft Office, and I also was able to use the Trebuchet on my blog. So you see the fonts, and it looks the same over on a page that I have written, on a sales page that I've written, on a blog post that I've written, or even the Facebook images or the images that I share on social networks. Again, that's a tiny, tiny one, but it can be really impactful, especially when you look at people who do fonts really well. Like if you look at Samsung, for example, all of that kind of weird, they don't have very many hard edges. That Samsung font, whenever you see that, you know that's a Samsung product. When you see Apple, who Steve Jobs kind of created these fonts, I think, He was the one that had the idea that you didn't have to have just your normal Times New Roman or something like that. Apple's fonts are generally the same. It just gives you a level of comfort that you know what you're getting into. It's a familiarity type thing, and it's one of those things that's the small details that you can really make people feel comfortable with. Now, if you're using multiple sites, like I have a membership site, I've got an events site, I've got a blog tutorial site, my blog, podcasts, use the same fonts on all of those. Not only do you want people to recognize and say, hey, Ellery does this, or hey, John does this, or hey, Rocco does this. You want to make sure people know that it's your site. It's somewhat of branding. Now, if you followed my blog for a long time, personal branding is a favorite topic of mine, and personal branding can come through in these fonts, especially here in this next one that we're going to talk about, which is colors. But if you combine your fonts and colors and how everything looks from one platform to another, it will feel very familiar. Plus, it makes it easier for you. If you're copying files over, it's easier to copy the same files from one to the other, especially if they have the same fonts. Now, color is another thing. Color, when you see, it's an interesting statistic, or it's an interesting thing how Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and even Google's icon, and look at all these social networks that have a blue background. They're all blue, but they're slightly different colors of blue. So the Twitter is kind of like a sky blue. The Facebook is more of a dark blue. The LinkedIn is almost like a grayish, greenish blue. But they're all very different. If you put the logos next to one another, you would be able to clearly tell that each one of those has a different color. And they're all very different. Blue signifies, trust and friendliness and all those kinds of other things. Red is passion, or it could be anger, but it's definitely a passion color. Browns generally convey kind of this, and not only are they earth tones, but they convey kind of this trustworthy, grounded, kind of sense of things, but they also can seem a little bit boring. So you have to be careful. But whenever you're incorporating colors into your site, or the design of colors, where things are, you can also make those very easy and recognizable. For example, on my website, you've got the header on the top, and you've got a black E for Ellery with a green circle around it. Now, I just did this recently, and you might not even have noticed this, but I use the Drop Caps plugin for WordPress. It makes that first letter really big. That green color that I use there is the same green, or it should be the same color green. If I set it up right, it should be the exact same color green that is around the E. So it's a green letter, it's a green logo, and some of the links that I use, while they're blue, any other time that I'm going to be using that green color, it's going to have that same tying in consistency of green. And that's a really easy way to do that. If you hop over to my membership site, the green logo is gone, but the Ellery Wells and the wording's the same. It's replaced by a hammer and the college cap. I forgot what those are called. Someone will point that out for me, I'm sure. But the hat with the tassel. And that's kind of the logo and brand there. But the rest of it is the same. So one element's changed, one element's the same. And also on my blog, there's a black bar that goes all the way across the top for the menu. You'll find that same black bar, slightly different, but it'll look mostly the same once you log into the membership site. And also, each lesson inside that membership site is also that same color green that is the logo. So everything that Facebook does is one color of blue. Everything that Twitter does is this other color of blue. Same for LinkedIn. Google Plus uses red and Pinterest uses red, but those are two different colors of red. And this is another way that you can incorporate color and consistency in these tiny details into your brand and your business. Put that same color, which by the way, it's the same logo, that same color green that is on my business cards. So when you see that E with the circle around it on my business cards and you go to my website, you say, oh, I know that I'm talking to the same guy. I know that I'm talking to Ellery. I know that we met wherever we met, and this is his website. You don't want to give somebody a business card and have them go to your site and have it completely strange. Which, by the way, I mentioned the Trebuchet MS is my font. Guess what font? I think this is the Trebuchet font that's on my business card. Another way to tie in, give people that familiarity and that level of consistency that they know what to expect. So far we've covered headshots that need to be consistent, fonts, and colors. The next thing, and this is going to be more of an advanced one. Those other things are fairly easy, but the next one that I wanted to talk about is the tone of voice that you use in your podcast, that you use in your writing style, how you make tweets or Facebook updates or LinkedIn updates, those kinds of things. But this tone of voice needs to be consistent across everything that you do. Again, it's a small, tiny detail, but it makes all the difference. For example, if you are tweeting and just cursing and cussing all over Twitter because they don't really filter anything, and then you'd move it over here to Facebook and you're all clean and all of those things are edited, people are going to wonder, who's the real you? Will the real John, please stand up? Will the real Hillary, I didn't want to do the real Slim Shady please stand up thing, but that's the idea. People want to know, again, who they are, who you are, who they're dealing with, what you're about, those kinds of things. And by using the same tone of voice, hey guys, this is really cool over here, plus, hey guys, this is really cool over there, they'll know it's the same thing. And again, they'll feel comfortable with it. You don't have to tweet and Facebook update and LinkedIn updates, all the same content. You don't have to use the exact same posts or the same sharing things or say the same different things. Not only is Twitter, of course, limited to 140 characters and Facebook is not, but at least having that same kind of tone, that same kind of personality shining through in whatever you do. And here's another one that a lot of people don't think about, but I try to do this. I've gotten compliments by doing this. I know Pat Flynn does a pretty good job of this as well, but it's in the emails. One of the things that I really strive to do in my blog, and I didn't start off this way, but one of the things I really strive to do now is write just like I talk. And that includes ending a sentence on a preposition or saying, that's stupid instead of, that is incorrect, or whatever it is, the same way that I talk to my friends, my family, my wife, to podcast guests. I try to write the same way. And if you can take that tone of voice, that personality coming through, and you can translate that into your emails and your autoresponder series, people are going to really appreciate that as well. Imagine if my blog was very casual, and it is. And then all of a sudden, you got an email from me, and that email from me says, Dear Sir, or Dear Madam, today's blog post, we're going to discuss the blah, blah. I've probably already lost you and you're just listening to it and it took half a second. People can tell this conversational tone in an email, and especially if you've done a good job of incorporating your quote voice into your writing and into your podcast, they're going to be really caught off guard and feel kind of I don't know if disingenuine is the right word, but they're going to really kind of feel weird about emails that don't sound the exact same way. Now, if you have a blog and a podcast, that tone needs to come through as well. I've talked to, it's funny whenever I hear this, because sometimes when I answer my phone number, I can answer it through my phone, and of course I'm going to use the same microphone that I'm using right now, same pop filter, same setup, and same office and everything. And they say, man, you sound just like you do on your podcast. And I take that as a compliment, because it's me. I don't treat the podcast different than how I would talk to you if you called me on the phone, which you can do, by the way. Call me 512-774-4614. I'd love to hear from you. But if you call me on that phone number, unless I'm out, in the car or at a coffee shop or something, I'm probably going to sound exactly like I do right now. And I'm going to answer the phone. Hey, what's going on? What's up? How you doing? just exactly like I would talk to somebody on the podcast, and just like how I would write on my blog, and just like how I would write my emails. So by maintaining that tone of voice, that personality coming through in everything that you do, it will really, again, be one of those small, tiny, insignificant details that makes people really feel like they know you. And if you're a different person online than you are offline, you're going to exhaust yourself. People are going to wonder, who is this person that I deal with? Is he this guy that goes out and parties on the weekend, or is he this professional dude that I listen to on his podcast? Now, you don't have to do your podcast at the bar, but I try to be the exact same person all the time. And my wife would agree that I'm the same way when I'm talking to my mom, when I'm talking to my wife, when I'm talking to my sister, even though they're all three females, as if one of my friends called me up on the phone. We'd probably do the exact same things. Of course, there are some exceptions to that rule, but I try to be the exact same thing all the time. And when people meet me in person after they've listened to my show, there's no disconnect. There's no gap of, that's not really who I thought Ellery was. And that is proven to be extremely profitable and beneficial when it comes to friendships and other relationships as well. When people meet you in person and they feel like they know you because they've listened to your podcast or read your blog or read your book or whatever it is, you're going to get much further, much faster when there's no delay or there's no disconnect between the real you and the online you. One other thing that kind of goes along with the same thing is what you share. So headshots, fonts, colors, tone, what you share on, and specifically social media. I've got a guy who I am friends with. I think I was a guest on his show, and he's all about being professional. He wants to have this professional persona, and then he will share the most random crap on Facebook. He'll share things from BuzzFeed that are completely distracting. Yeah, they're funny, but I'm sitting here this whole time watching his updates scroll through my feed, and I'm thinking, man, you're trying to create this business for yourself where you're a video expert and you're very professional, you're very knowledgeable, and you want to go full time at this. You want to create this business for yourself, and here you are. 90% of what you're sharing on social media, all it does is distract. It has nothing to do with what you talk about. And not everything does. Little side note there. Not everything that you share has to be exactly on point with what you talk about in your brand or your business. But stop sharing this crap that serves no purpose other than to distract people from what they're doing, from their purpose. Because here's the thing. You're only sharing it because you watched it too. And if you took the time out of your day to be this distracted and share all of these nonsensical videos, that means you're not hustling. That means you're not focused. And that means if I hire you, you're probably going to be doing the same thing. Or if I work with you, you're going to be doing the same thing. Or why would I want to try to do what you're doing because I know all you're doing is sharing crap? The occasional cat video is fine. The occasional, weird thing on Facebook or whatever is fine. But when that's predominantly what you're sharing, it creates a very I almost said insignificant. That's not the right word. It creates a very inconsistent brand image of who you are and what your brand is about. So, for example, here's the opposite of that. If you're wanting to do marketing, like I had Alex Harris on my show several months ago. I'll put a link in the show notes to the episode with Alex. But his brand is all about marketing optimization, how you can make your website and your podcast convert listeners to customers. And whenever I scroll through Alex's news feed or Twitter feed, I expect to see things that will help me optimize my website. I want to learn things about how to do marketing better, and I expect to be able to go to his site and see, or go to his social media and see things that will help me do that, because that's his brand. If I went to Alex's and I'm just picking on Alex because I know he's a good friend of mine, and I'm not actually doing this, so this isn't. I'm not trying to call attention to something that I don't see, but in fact, I do see really good stuff coming from Alex. So with that said, if I were to go to Alex's site and see all of these same BuzzFeed videos, all these tiny distractions that are just meant to make me less productive, I'd start wondering about his credibility. So if he's sharing things that are related to his niche, he and his wife going to an event, or him speaking at an event, or just doing general marketing things, optimization things, interviewing people along those same lines, he's going to have more credibility to me. And then alternatively, contrast that with this other dude who wants to be professional, but all he does is share unrelated, uninteresting, hilarious, but irrelevant material that's meant to distract. Who do you think is going to be more credible in the marketplace? Who do you think I'm going to hire or want to work with or partner with or do a joint venture with? Hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about there, but make sure what you share on social media boosts your credibility and your brand within the marketplace. And this isn't necessarily all about personal branding. Again, it's about the tiny details that lead to really big results, but that will get you going in the right direction. Now, how do you test these things? How do you go to your website and see all of the crappy pop-ups, or how things are navigated, or just how do you fix these things that we've talked about? Well, let me recap, and I'll get into what you can do to fix these. So far, we've talked about headshots, having the same headshot on your About page as on your Facebook page, as on your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Pinterest profile, your Medium profile, your Tumblr profile, wherever you have it, all over the place. Have a consistent, recognizable headshot. Just as a side note, one of the people who does this the absolute best, well, there's two. I'd say John Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire does it really well. And I'd also say that James Kinson does this really well. James he got some professional headshots done, and he uses them on his business card, on his website, on his podcast, on all of his social media accounts. And if you need to get a professional headshot, pay someone to do that so that you can create a level of consistency with an image that you're proud of. Probably money well spent. So headshots and consistency. Fonts. I mentioned using Trebuchet EMS. You may want to do Arial. I'll add to that, though, that your blog's font, probably too small. If it's the same size as what's on Facebook, it's too small. It needs to be probably a size 16 or 18. The colors. You want to create the same feeling of home or comfort level across all of your platforms if possible. So we talked about Facebook, LinkedIn, and all these social sites, how they all have the same color of blue everywhere. My membership site and my logo and all those things. So colors, the tone of voice, make sure your personality comes through everywhere, and what you're tweeting, what you're emailing, what you're writing about, or how you're talking on your podcast, this tone of voice should be consistent everywhere. And if you're a guest or do a guest post, or you're a guest on somebody's podcast, that's another example or another way that you can create a level of consistency. And then what you share on your social networks should also tie into what you talk about or write about on your podcast or blog. So how do you check these things? How do you check some of these tiny details and identify areas where you can improve? Well, here's what you do. In Chrome, it's called an incognito tab. I think you can do the same thing in Internet Explorer, but I'm not sure exactly what it's called or how you do that. But I use and actually recommend that you use Chrome. It's updated more often. But you can go into an incognito window. If you have your icons down there on the bottom of your screen like I do, you can right-click on the Chrome icon, go to New Incognito Window. Or if you are in Chrome, you're already surfing around, you can go over to that under the X, those 3 horizontal bars, which is kind of the Chrome menu, and go down to New Incognito Window. It's right under New tab and New Window, or hit Control-Shift-N, and that will open up a new incognito window. You can do this on your phone as well by going to the settings in incognito window. And if there's like this guy that looks kind of like a shady Sherlock Holmes with a hat and sunglasses, that just, it's a kind of a funny icon, but it gives you an incognito window. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to just kind of live tweak my own website here and give you some feedback. But once you do this, it opens a window or opens a tab in your browser that has no history. It's kind of a private browsing. It doesn't have any cache, and all the settings that you normally have on websites, icons you've dismissed or whatever, those will not show up. So I just did this and went to ElleryWells.com, which is my website. You probably knew that already. And in an incognito window, I immediately notice one thing. I have a sticky bar at the top that pops down. Normally, I have already dismissed this. A few seconds later, I have a pop-up that says, get the 4 must-have resources for building an online business. So one's a 30 days course, one's a pop-up. And by the way, this isn't an episode about pop-ups, but pop-ups are a really good thing. They're not as negative or bad as you fear that they might be. So I'm going to dismiss this pop-up. And I know since I've designed the site and I built it, once I scroll down, I'm going to get, I guess I've turned it off on the home page, but you should have another slide out from the side that offers you another opportunity to opt in when you scroll down over halfway through the page. But I noticed immediately a few things. I see my green logo. I see the green, that drop caps. So I've done a fairly decent job there as well. Actually, today's blog post, or this week's blog post, Essential Tools for Your Startup Business, that's the same green. I think that was kind of by accident though. But also I want you to look at your navigation menu. You want everything to be easy whenever people log on to your site. So if you've got a whole bunch of menus, not only do those not really work on mobile, but it's too much. You need to simplify things. So in my blogging course, which I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can go to ElleryWells.com/30 days, and it talks about how to create awesome menus for your site. You want to make sure the navigation is easy for people to follow and easy for people to find what they're looking for. So in an incognito window, you can see all of the pop-ups and things that you have activated that people might not want to see, or they might be slightly overwhelming. And go visit your website every once in a while to do this. I have somebody, I've gone to their site several times, and every time I get a pop-up. Every time I close it, they need to change that to where it won't show me that same pop-up for at least 3 weeks to a month. At least. But every time, same pop-up. And it's kind of annoying. And when I go to a new page, same pop-up. It's kind of annoying. So that's one of those tiny things that creates a negative user experience. So you want to make sure that your social networks and things are tied into this, their links and the images and the fonts and the colors and everything that we've talked about, plus this navigation of when you go to your site. If you're going to your podcast episode, you want to make sure that in iTunes, that same image is the same one that's on your website. If you update it one place, update it everywhere. If you can't figure out how to easily navigate somewhere, most likely your visitors won't either. If you can't tell somebody how to get somewhere on your site over the phone and have them easily figure it out, it's probably too complicated. One more of those small things that can have a huge impact. So I'll leave you with this final quote, one more time from Michael Gerber, and I hope you become one of these awesome, epic, fantastic business people that he's talking about. I hope you implement some of these tiny details that will really add this spit and polish to your blog, to your podcast, and to your online brand. And go to empoweredpodcast.com/74. And if you have a tactic If you have something that will really add to the overall feeling of a blog or a podcast or brand or online store, and you feel like sharing that with me, I would love to hear about that so that I can share that with the people in my community. And in this case, I really think that the rising tide will raise all boats, and we'll all do a much better job making our visitors feel comfortable with us. And here's that final quote for you. The greatest business people have a genuine fascination for the truly astonishing impact little things done exactly right can have on the world. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of how much little things can impact your business, your blog, and your podcast. I want to encourage you to go over to empoweredpodcast.com/74. That's episode 74. And leave a comment and check out the show notes for this page. And there's also some links to leave a rating and review in iTunes or subscribe in Stitcher if you haven't already. And if you're not already, sign up for my email list. I share some really incredible information. I get great feedback from the people who are on my list thanking me for just sharing tools and tips. And I would love to be able to share those with you. And I'd love to have you join my community through my email list as well. And there's a spot to do that if you go to empoweredpodcast.com/74. Now, I want to point out an event that is coming this way. If you are in the Austin area, and I know a lot of my listeners, most of them are in the United States, and a lot of them are here in the Texas area. Stay tuned to ElleryWells.com because I'm doing a one-day live event that's going to be absolutely incredible, jam-packed in May that I want you to be a part of. If you want to blog as a business, podcast as a business, or grow your business, but you are just struggling to get traction, find your ground, just make any sort of progress or the progress that you want to make. You're making some, but not exactly the same progress that you want to make or that you know you can make. Sign up for my email list because I'm going to send out some additional details about this one-day event that I'm putting together here in Austin. If you can make it to Austin, if you can drive, fly, take a boat, walk, jog to Austin, I'm putting together a fantastic one-day event. And it starts because I want to do more to help you. That's where it comes from. I don't want you to go to a job you don't like or work for a boss that doesn't like you. And I want to show you how to do what I've done in a dense one-day event. Because 3 years ago, I was working at an IT company. I was on top of the sales chart. I was the best of the best. I had no blog, no business, no podcast. And now I'm talking to you. Now I have a blog with thousands of readers, podcasts with thousands of listeners, and this is my full-time job. I work for you. I don't work for a boss that hates me or I don't like him. And so much has changed for me over the last few years. I want to show you how to do the exact same thing. So if you struggle with connecting with your audience in a real and meaningful way, and that includes finding your voice like we talked about, if you struggle with building and growing an online audience, figuring out the best way to grow and monetize your platform, how to establish yourself in an ever-changing marketplace, Facebook's changing something all the time. If you are challenged with focusing on the next right step to get your business moving forward again, or being true to yourself while still reaching a larger audience and standing out in a marketplace that's increasingly crowded, this event is going to help address every single one of those kinds of things. We're talking about how blogging can boost your business, how you can grow your audience 2 years at a time. We're going to have small group discussions, and you will have an opportunity to work on a quick sales pitch, network with other like-minded people who have made it to this event, and have small group breakout sessions where you can discuss and brainstorm and share your idea. A few key people will even have them on the hot seat, and you can see how that works and just get an idea of the power that a mastermind can have for exploding the growth of your business. And I'm going to share more details on how this is going to set up, how it's going to impact your life, how it will grow your business, and through email. And by the way, if you are on this email, you will get a special early bird registration price of only $397. The closer it gets to the event and the weeks leading up to the event, it's going to be $547. But for right now, it's going to be $397. Almost said $347. That's not right. It's going to be $397. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't feel completely comfortable with what you get from the event. I'll give you all of your money back. There's no risk to you. And I'm going to send out a link to where you can get that special early bird pricing if you sign up for my email list by going to empoweredpodcast.com/ yep, you guessed it, 74 for this episode. There'll be a link to register for my email list there. Thank you for tuning in. You should be one step closer to becoming the entrepreneur that you want to become, having the consistent branding across all of your platforms, and really focusing on the tiny details that will make you an excellent business person. Thank you for tuning in to the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. We'll see you next week.